Good morning, everybody. It's Michelle. I just thought I'd pop on here and show you what I'm up to at the moment. For this project, I'm going to just show you how to hand edge whatever it is you want in a cotton fabric. So for this, I'm going to be doing a hanky, but you could, of course, do this for placemats or anything else that required a nice edge on it. And for this project, I am using an embroidery needle. I like milliner's needles, but you'll need a little pair of scissors and some thread. Whatever thread you want, it's not a problem. Let me just tuck my scissors back into their little pouch over there. And thread, as I said, and needle, thread, snips. Obviously fabric. I've chosen to use some embroidery floss. Embroidery floss comes in 1,000,001 colors, and that's the beauty of them actually. I'm using whatever I had in a box that's been with me for forever. I think this one's Anchor. My preferred one is DMC, but this works just as well. It's a 6-strand embroidery thread, and you simply pull one strand at a time. You could do more, but because it's meant to be hidden, the stitch, it's not meant to be a decorative stitch as such. What you would do is you take your strands like that, cut it to a length that's not too long. This is probably about 40 centimeters, maybe or so, possibly too long, because the more it goes through the fabric, the more it will actually shear it and damage it, and it'll then start knotting and it'll snap over time. So the shorter pieces are better, so 30 centimeters or so. And then you cut that, you hold it at one end gently in your fingers, and you can splay out your 6 strands. So this one's now only got 5 strands left because I've obviously pulled one already. And this is how you pull them out. Grab one and you gently hold the other side and you pull, and it'll ruche up at the back as it's coming out, but it will not knot if you do it nice and gently. There you go. So I've now unraveled that, put that aside for the next piece I need, and I am left with a lovely strand of single floss. The other thing I do is I test it for which direction I should sew in. If you gently run your fingers along it like this, it has a bit of a directional feel to it. So that way I'm feeling a lot of bumps. And then if I do it this way, it feels a little bit more bumpy. And so I am going to thread it from this end because that feels smoother. And if it's smoother pulling through the fabric, you won't have as many knots and as much fraying of the item. What I'm going to show you as well is the same for a sewing machine project. When you're threading your needle, you don't really need to lick it or put it in your mouth or whatever to get it nice and smooth to go through the eye of the needle. What you need to do though is cut your thread at a 45-degree angle. So there's my thread going this way, and there's my scissors going 45 degrees across. And that microscopically gives you a point on one side of your thread, which will go through your needle absolutely perfectly every time if you've done it right and if you've got decent quality thread. Now let's get to, I don't need that crochet piece, the fabric. I have for this project cut squares about 40 by 40. I haven't pressed them or anything yet, but what I have done is with my fingers I've turned over a little section of the hem here. I'd say it's about 5 millimeters. Now don't do that too far down, just do a finger crease a few centimeters, maybe 10 at the most. I've got my thread already here and I've anchored it just below the surface here. So So on this side is where I started, and I simply put a little stitch in place to get started. And then you're ready. First thing you do is go the distance you want away from your previous stitch. I'm using about 1 centimeter, just under a centimeter, and I want to pick up a couple of strands at most. So let's see if this will stay in focus if I get a little bit closer. Apologize for the state of this nail of mine, but yes, I have been working on my sewing machines. So pick up a couple of strands on the bottom, just below where your raw edge is, and then go to the top edge where it's folded, absolutely straight, perpendicular to this, and you pick that up. I apologize if you can hear hubby in the background, he is working, and I pull through. So you can see that is meant to be straight, it isn't in this case. Go back down underneath the raw edge, pick up a couple of stitches of your fabric, pull through, and then I use my needle as a guide to try and make a straight, and then go through the folded edge and pull through. That one's better. Now, I have seen it done before where people make a mark on their finger with a pen, which is the distance they want. You could equally do that along here if you were really that concerned about getting it perfect, but I don't want to do that. So nearly a centimeter away, or whatever size you want, straight up through the edge, the folded edge of your piece. And we keep doing that all the way along. If you're concerned about getting this line straight, put a pencil mark there before you start, and then you know you're always going to get your stitch into the main part of the work in exactly the right place. I'm just going to try and keep myself in the center here for you. Now I'm going to go straight up from where I've done my stitch in the fabric, and I'm going to put a stitch into the fold where the hem is. So you can see now we're getting this zigzag, but the zig, the upright one, is straight, and then the zag is at an angle. So we're coming down here, and that creates the angle. So we've done a stitch there. Let's move across a little bit. See if I can keep you in focus if I get you a bit closer. That's too close to there. I don't know what I have done. Oh, no. There you go. It's just hooked over a thread. So that's my stitch. There's a straight line up towards the hem. And I put my needle through there and pull tight. No, loose. Keep it loose. Go back down to the body of the handkerchief or the garment you're making, the hem. So if you're doing a christening gown or a dress for a child that you want to do a hand-rolled hem on, this is one way to do it. And I put a stitch in there, pull it gently, and then go straight up from that through the folded edge. You can catch 1 or 2 strands of the fabric, and that'll be absolutely fine. So I'm back down to the body, 1 centimeter-ish away, pick up a couple of strands, use that as a guide, and go through a couple of strands on the folded edge and pull it gently. So you can see now how much we've done. I'd say let's grab this ruler, which I have in here somewhere, and you can have a look about how much I've done. It's about 6 centimeters that I've worked. You don't want to do this too far, because what you have to do next is pull this to create a roll. So we're going to pull this thread now. This is where the stress on the thread comes in. So if you're using a bad quality thread, it's not going to work very well. So you gently pull, and as you can see, it starts to pull each thread that stitch you've already made until it's tight all the way to where you started. And there you have a lovely rolled hem. And on this side, hopefully you've got a nice neat row of hand stitches, like pricking stitches. So we go back to our needle and thread. We fold a little section of this over again. So the same amount, about 5 millimeters I've done. Needs to be small enough or narrow enough that it will pull under when you do the pulling. Fold that just gently with your fingers and you're ready to carry on. So here we are. This is where I finished off. It was a straight stitch into the edge. So now I go back into the body. Pick up a couple of strands, pull that through, and then through the edge of the hem. And I repeat that until, now that one I only picked up one strand. And you can do that, but it's a lot more work to just pick up one strand consistently all of the time. So it will slow you down. Whereas if you're picking up two, it's a little bit easier. It's a bit quicker. And if you only pick up one, that's fine. It's a bonus. But you will see a difference on the back when you've pulled. So when I say on the back, I mean on the right side. You will see a difference because you won't have as big a dimple where your stitches come through. And absolutely that's a design choice you can make. So here we go again. One stitch about a centimeter away here and one up here. Now you might ask me, why on earth would I go to all this effort for a hanky? But I can tell you these will last for many, many years. And that's a great thing because all those tissues that would have been used over, let's say, 10 years of using, even 5 years of using these hankies, will make a massive difference to the environment. And that's why it's 100% worth it. Also, hubby's always used a hanky. And so, and I do as well. It's definitely worth it. For me anyway, because I sit on my daybed a lot with my health being the way it is. And so it's quite a nice job to do when you're sitting. So as I said, don't go too far, because if you go too far, it's going to be much more difficult to pull this thread. So we're ready to pull. We've done a few centimeters there. I might have to just redo a little bit with a darker thread for you and keep pulling until you get back to the where you started. Now your stitches this end where you've been pulling might be tighter than at this end. So all we have to do is just squeeze, push that out. And bear in mind, this will get ironed once more before we finish the project off and put a monogram or whatever we want on it. That is how you edge it. How you do the corner is by simply folding it in like so, and then fold over and continue doing what you're doing. And then you'll have, before you know it actually, this is really quite quick once you get the hang of it. The only problem you're going to have is you won't see this on camera as well, but your thread does start to get fluffier as you go. And if you're finding it's getting quite fluffy, it's probably an indication that you've cut your threads too long. And so from then on, just cut your threads a little bit shorter. There you go. And that is all you're going to do. I'm also going to show you another way for you to indicate where to pick up a stitch actually. Let me do that while I'm here quickly before we carry on. So decide how big your hem needs to be. And I'm just pulling a thread because these are just ripped. So let's say we are going to make a 5 millimeter hem, a stitch a 5 millimeter hem here. So when it rolls, it's going to be technically almost double that size. What we could do is just below that. So if we say that that's going to be the width there, what you can do is say, this is where I want to do my stitching. And you could grab a thread. You have to be very gentle with this when you start. So you grab a single thread along the hanky, and if you gently pull it, you can see it makes a line. Hope you can see that on the camera. But that's what you want to do. If it snaps at that point, it doesn't really matter, which it has done, because one strand of this thread isn't nearly as strong as multiple strands. What you can do is just get one thread, pull it, keep pulling it super gently until it's made a mark. And now actually, instead of having to draw a line, where you've pulled that strand of thread out, the warp or the weft, whichever it is, you actually have a perfect line for you to now stitch your seam along, because there's one thread running through the entire length, and you've got more space between the strands next to it, so it'll be easier for you to pick up. So I hope that's really helped, and what I'll do is I'll come back and show you a picture of the end result. I'll put some photos on there. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Take care.